So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Casper, and I'm from opportunity.to. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. So, I've been working on how to get people jobs for about, in the back of my mind, for 8 years. Actively working towards creating products and services to help people for 5 years. I've been very invested into this this purpose. I think it's my life purpose. I am very dissatisfied with how the market is operating in getting people who are competent work. I'm very dissatisfied with how employers are having challenges finding people work. I mean, looking for the people whom they need for their operational requirements. And I think I have a way to help people solve their problem. I'm very passionate about this for a number of reasons. I found that there are very high quality people in the wrong disciplines. I think they're very smart and brilliant people who are diamonds in the rough, and they can be acquired outside of the hierarchy to which you would assume competencies would be in your profession. And these people can help your business, and it almost seems like in some type of jobs a large number of people are actually being chased by multiple employers whom may be overvalued. Well, I could. The employees may not agree with what I'm saying too much, but the employers know what I'm getting at. There's a large volume of people who are overpaid, and there's a large volume of people who are underpaid. And with the indexing of competencies and the exposure of high quality people to a broader base is going to allow everyone to benefit. It's going to democratize service, compensation, competency, work processes, and just basic improvement of how we function as a business society. So outside of social society, how people get along, but also how business operates. I don't know what the noun is for that, but you can call it the marketplace, I guess, but that's not, I don't find that's an intimate enough term, because work in itself is its own, business in itself has its own network and network effects outside of the the social environment, and it interacts in a very specific and coordinated way. Maybe someone can tell me what that term is. Anyways, if you do know, send an email at info@opportunity.to. So what am I presenting today? Today I'm presenting the work render deposit matching algorithm. What does that mean? Basically, the chicken or the egg. So if you're looking for a consultant, if you need someone for work to be fulfilled, whom are you looking for first? Are you looking for individual who can get a job done, and then figuring out how to pay them, or paying them as little? Or are you willing to pay anything to get the work done? And I think this is why we hire people, and we have onboarding processes, and that's why we hire people away from other companies because we can assume they have certain competencies that's going to give a net benefit to our organization. But the problem is, at what cost? At what cost? So, keeping your expenses in check is the foundation of any business. Myself, I've been looking to. I have a number of online businesses, and myself, I'm actually looking for a split between wholesale retail type relationship, which doesn't exist in the market, but it's in the real world, and there is a challenge to it. It's going to take a lot of phone calls. It's going to take a lot of emails. It's going to require a lot of getting along with people. And that's one of the things. We've delegated this need to an individual who at times may be not competent enough to assume what an organization actually needs, because they're just a human being, right? And an HR director can't determine all that the company needs. They can only assume based on the time they've spent at that organization for the process. Can they see into the future for what the company actually needs? And so the way to reduce the risk, the margin of risk, is by reducing the expenses of people being brought into your organization for process execution. So as an example, if I want work rendered, I'm willing to spend money to advertise on Monster, ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, and even Craigslist for seeking an individual for a certain competency. Now, what if I skipped all that and I publicly, in escrow, deposited those funds to actually allocate it for the process execution that I'm actually looking for? It can be on a subscription basis, and it could also be on a subscription basis, or it can be for individualized task execution. So it's a one-time deal, or it's basically the onboarding of an employee, a pseudo-employee, for a singular process execution. I have the authority to speak about this subject because I have been directly exposed to hundreds of thousands of job applications and the data behind it by running a job search application, a jobs board. And in my experience, what an employer says they're seeking based on the job post and the individual's resume to which they swipe on, because we have a kind of how shall I say, Tinder type yes/no application. Swipe yes for whom you are interested, swipe no for whom you're not, and we're blown away by what employers swipe no to. So I think and the reason why is because we have a lot of keyword matching that we've applied to certain people whom we assumed, based on our previous analysis, oh, these people are likely to be hired because they have keyword matching based on the expectation of the employer in their post. But when these people are brought to the top, a lot of the time they're not approved on for a number of reasons, but I'm not going to be getting into that now. So I find it utterly fascinating, and so much has been learned by running this jobs board. Is the seeking of employment or the need for services more valuable? So what does this mean? Is a person, so in the context of humanity, right? What is more critical to humanity? Someone seeking employment that I wish and I want to be paid, but I don't know what, or I know what, but does the market need me? To I am willing to pay for something that needs to be done, and I need that person to get it done for me. What is more valuable? Is the chicken or the egg? And I think in some way it's the employer. The reason why is because all revenue from LinkedIn is basically from the employer side. So this question that I'm posing, I think that it's already been answered by the marketplace. The employer is more willing to commit, and they're willing to put their bottom dollar on actually getting the right person than the job seeker to stick their head out. And another reason why I can commit to this is because I've offered job seeking services or job acquiring services for people who are looking for jobs, professionals or just simple people, and the employer side is of more interest in actual pay than individual people willing to pay to find a job for a number of reasons. I don't know so much. I can't define the psychology of it yet, but I will try to find that. But I have noticed this, and I think it's something to do with human nature. People are more willing to commit to find a person that they need than people are willing to commit financially to find a higher paying job or a job, which I find outstanding, because every day you're not working means a day you're not getting paid. Every day that you're not earning 50% more is a day that you are not earning 50% more. But, be as it may, this is what I've found from my experience over the past, I would say, 2 years. So, utterly fascinating. You'd think people would be more committed to their futures, but I think this is the question that all these these gurus, they're trying to shake people of the matrix or whatever they, a lot of people say, oh, you're living a matrix. Every day you're going to your 9 to 5. They're trying to shake people awake, but it's to do with security, and I don't think that people are actually. They don't realize that security, the stagnation of so for example, once people reach a certain amount, they're willing to grasp and hold on to that than to risk just a little bit to achieve more. And the reason why I can say that I perceived and I've noticed a lot of people who have started businesses, and I was utterly blown away how a lot of businesses are not willing to commit to marketing and advertising and actually spend money. They'll open up a business location, they'll hire the people for it to function, but they won't commit to the advertising. And I think that's this in the same way that people are not willing to commit to their own future by increasing their aggregate income, be it a promotion within their own organization. Well, maybe a lot of people are seeking for promotions with their own organization, but maybe seeking a job in that same career but at another company, you know. If they do have certain skills that they have attained that would be more valuable to a alternate market. For example, a lot of people are computer programmers for, let's say, a mining company, and they're engineers and they do a lot of intensive math, and they might be doing physics, where they may be able to earn 6 times more money by working in the financial sector, what would be described as fintech, right? Financial technology, but which is happening every day. So, and there's this argument, but I'm passionate. Well, are you? And I don't buy into this a lot. And you hear most of the time, a lot of people make that point. But I think that's a moot point, because I think a lot of people would find passion and purpose in their work if their work was more valuable. And so this argument where a lot of people say, I'm happy where I am, is actually quite selfish, because their needs and their abilities may hold a higher purpose. And I think it's a little bit of a cop-out. And I think it's based out of fear of losing that of which they have, right? So, if we go back to caveman days, the salted pork, or the salted food that I have acquired over a period of time, and that I'm holding on to survive the winter, is more valuable than the potential exchange of that meat for services or alternate food supplies, and that's, we all know that the interaction of exchange allows to benefit people, but people they want to hold on to what they have, and I think it's just a mode of survival that a lot of people haven't gotten out of. As an example, let's say you have some salted pork that you're holding on to survive the winter, and someone comes and they have, I have a satchel of grain or rice or something like this, but you may find yourself, there might be greater value in having that meat, because you fear, even though you can see the value of the amount of carbohydrates and energy that you can have from this sack of rice or grain or whatever, or dried blueberries, because you know that of what you have is enough, that you fear simply the exchange itself. And that person who is exchanging those carbohydrates may know that they're getting less of that, less of a carbohydrate return, but they may, for example, need the minerals within that meat to survive the winter as well. They may need an extended amount of energy by the consumption of protein. And so this is kind of like how different people perceive different value based on what they need. And I think that the indexation of value, of what people could offer and what people need, and the interaction of that is really required, because I have yet to this day seen a sophisticated mode of exchange of this exchange of value. And I think it's the number one, it's the most critical component of humanity. I think it's more important than the exchange of funds, because that's the we assume the exchange of, let's say, the interaction of people. Let's say I pay you $1 and you give me $1 for this service or whatever. That's just a mode of exchange, but it is not the exchange of value. The exchange of value is the rendering of that services for that $1, or vice versa. I pay you $1 for a certain product, and that the value of that which you need is the critical importance of humanity and the progression of our society and mankind. And so I think it all just comes down to jobs, right? And everyone has their own unique experience, competency, ability, regardless of IQ, regardless of culture. Everyone can provide value to some person in some mode. And I think the indexation of that is necessary. Where traditionally we would open up a yellow pages and we'd find, let's say, a chiropractor because your back hurts. You assume that there's value in that chiropractor, so you pay them for that and render that service to relieve you of that pain. And you assume this person is a professional and that they can help you. And the benefit to the chiropractor is that they can receive more modes of exchange, meaning dollars, to then purchase products and or services which they may perceive more valuable than this quantity of modes of exchange, equaling dollars. So, of course, it's a marketplace, money moves around, but the actual indexation of it is very complex. And I don't think it's to this day, even though we have the internet, it hasn't moved beyond basically the yellow pages. You go into Google, you type it, you find the product that you need or the service, you interact with people whom you know, and they may give you a referral. Also, the sophistication of referrals of, for example, affiliate links. People receive commissions by posting products that they from Amazon because they have an affiliate account with Amazon and they get a commission. It's more or less the same word of mouth, but there isn't, the perception of value is still perceived by the individual, but there isn't any further assumption beyond that. Google would argue against the point that they would say, yes, but we can assume what you need for a prolonged period of time based on your searches and your behavior online. Yes, that is based on the essence that a person is seeking a certain value through extroversion. But they themselves may not be competent enough to know what they need. And this is a very large challenge for businesses who offer services and require people to be brought in within their organization, and people who have competencies and can offer that to employers. So at the end of the day, this value exchange is necessary. Trust is based on commitment typically by one party, where the consideration of the needs of the other party is taken in good faith. So, when you're getting along with somebody, boyfriend, girlfriend, one person's got to stick their neck out. Where does this? They're dating each other. One person's got to make the pitch. Hey, you want to be my girlfriend? Hey, you want to be my boyfriend? Are we boyfriend, girlfriend? The actualization of the relationship is typically extroverted through speech. It might be a written letter, it might be text messaging nowadays, whatever it is. Right? one person has to risk to reap reward, because there is rejection. And so I think that the employer is the party who is more willing to commit, traditionally speaking, than that of the job-seeking party. So I think that they would be the appropriate person to say, I'm willing to commit to this, and I am willing to put my money where my mouth is. And I think that's a much cheaper way than trying to negotiate. And it's almost like the employer can perceive the value of what they need based on their operational experience, and through their bookkeeping and accounting. Hopefully their bookkeeping and accounting is good, right? And they know how much that service should be valued at, right? We have to make that assumption, otherwise we can't progress and we can't move forward, because they have a greater competency of their business than anyone outside of their business. Even a person who may be in the industry a long period of time doesn't actually know the intricacies and the functions and expenses and the profit centers for that business unless they actually operate it. They don't know who their clientele is, blah, blah, blah. They can only make an assumption. So it would be appropriate for the party whom is seeking a service or a value to make that commitment, if that makes sense. Trust is based on commitment, typically by one party, where the consideration of the needs of the other party is taken in good faith. Yeah. So, let's move on to the next slide. In my experience, when seeking consultants, they are hesitant to commit when money is not on the table, and this slows down the process of deal making. It's actually very complicated to speak with a consultant. From what I've seen in the marketplace, these relationships with consultants take multiple months to determine what the pricing, the strategy, how much should someone get paid. It's absolutely extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. And so it's relatively inefficient. Whereas it can be as simple as this. Our company needs this to be done. We're having a problem with this. They escrow a certain amount to solve that problem, and then they attract the moths to the light, so to speak, because that money is real, and it actually has a greater value that it has been committed to something. That commitment itself is the foundation of trust. It's the chicken or the egg. It's the decision that it's rendered to existence. Whereas, when a company requests a proposal, usually it's a death nail to the business actually getting done, because it's just going to stagnate. Not typically, but what I've actually seen in the marketplace, send us a proposal, and there's further perception needed. Whereas a company says, hey, we have this problem, can you fix it? And they actually commit. And then, in my experience, from what I've seen, you will attract a greater quantity of professionals actually interested in helping you. And so that's why it's very important to offer this service. That it's the mode of value that's required. And because the company can value to a certain mode of exchange quantity equaling dollars, they can perceive what that product should be valued at, and they might be blown away by how much value they can acquire by a certain dollar amount. The bidding of work rendered can potentially be inefficient because the fact work can be rendered for a lower amount does not effectively negate the work is valued at a certain amount. So let's read that a bit slower. The bidding of work rendered can potentially be inefficient. Okay? That's so funny. I write these things what I think to be a clear mind. I should read out what I write. So it's actually really complex because it's almost like a double negative. Basically, this means an employer commits to a certain dollar amount, they put it in escrow, and they're seeking bids, and someone underbids. Now the perception of that value could be, wow, we're getting this much service for this price, but are we actually getting good service? Or are we not actually getting good service? But the fact is, you won't know until you further communication. The parties who are seeking the funds that you've committed, they'll be, if for example they are of a more competent nature and they already do have business, they'll be more willing to seek those funds because they know they exist in a real place, and they don't fear the loss of time to commit to that exchange. So it actually, it's basically the person who is buying something is also in some way selling their commitment to high quality parties. And what the perception of value could be is improved on because there is simply a greater quantity of competent parties bidding for that fund, for those funds. Does that make sense? I wish I could communicate a bit easier. But for me, the concepts are so abstract that they come in a flash of a moment at times, but they're very difficult to extrovert. I can only see the vision of how it all functions in the end, but the extroversion in itself is a great skill. I think if I had a better ability to extrovert my own ideas, I would probably be more successful. So this is something that I have to work on. But anyways, that being said, I hope you're catching on what I'm saying. And of course, if you do have any questions, you can send an email at info@opportunity.to. We can have a discussion, we can talk about it. The future assumption is that the system will be able to delegate the service necessary for a business to operate. So when you find, and you're the system for the mode of exchange, you can start to assume what a company is actually seeking if it's actually being, these exchanges have been done multiple times. And that's due to natural language processing, that's due to machine learning, that's due to keyword matching and basic assumption engines. So, as an example, Netflix assumes that you wish to watch a certain TV show, and the way they arrange the array of the different icons for the next TV show, or how they pose, it self-corrects. So the engine assumes what you want, and it self-corrects by the decisions you make, and so it infinitely improves, which further makes the product and service more sophisticated. The challenge is that with Netflix, they have they initially started with 50 tags. I think they're up to, like, last year I heard 200, but they're probably up to 400 different micro tags per show, that when the machine is learning, it can assume based on the tags with a whole array of different data points. Time of day, previously watched shows, and the list goes on. In the same way, this can be assumed on the language and the language and the dollar amount that the offerings are escrowed to the open market. And so when I'm talking about this service, so at the end of the day, the product will improve as more people interact with it. The aggregate of competencies is more valuable than singular competency because competencies have network effects. So, in my experience, working with a partner, you get higher quality output, not because any single individual has, not because two individuals, they get together and it's a multiplication of two because work is rendered that amount. It's because the interaction of those singular competencies and how they combine. So let's say, for example, one person is very good at let's say Photoshop and making things look very attractive, where the other person is very good at SEO. That in combination has a greater effect, where that person with SEO abilities, when they go to market, they may actually have a substandard image or video or copyright provided into the marketplace, even though they understand the mechanics and the algorithms to get things functioning. So that symbiosis has greater benefit. So that makes me challenge when employer is actually seeking an employee. When an employer is actually seeking an employee, they're hiring based on a singular competency or a certain array of competencies. But when you're talking about something like the world, the aggregate of all the competencies creates a ultra sophistication and higher quality output than any singular individual person could. And that can be perceived when you look outside the window of, let's say, a city. I'm in Hong Kong, and you can see no single individual can manage the whole city, but and the way it works. But the symbiosis of all these competencies, these singular competencies, creates an array where it exponentially combines, and so there's a greater net benefit to all people involved. So some people may not be good at cooking, but someone could cook. Presentation, I